They never come as enemies. That's the first thing you must understand. The ones who betray you don't wear warning signs. They don't approach with anger or distance. No, they walk in as comfort. They smile like friends, speak like family, stand beside you like protectors. And that's exactly why it breaks you. Not just because they leave, but because of how close they were when they did. Betrayal doesn't arrive with noise. It slips in during quiet moments, disguised as love, dressed in loyalty, soft in its timing and sharp in its intent. You didn't see it coming not because you were blind, but because you were real, because you loved without caution, trusted without measure, believed in the goodness of someone who only needed to get close enough to reach the part of you that never expected to be wounded by a familiar hand. And now here you stand, not weak, not naive, but awakened, with a scar that speaks louder than any warning ever could. Proximity before the poison. They don't stab you from across the room. They come close enough to hear your breath, to study the rhythm of your voice when you trust them, to feel the warmth of your guard falling. That's how betrayal begins, not with distance, but with a closeness so tender it feels sacred. They wrap themselves in the illusion of connection, whispering loyalty, nodding with your dreams, memorizing the maps of your soul. Not because they cherish it, but because they know exactly where to strike, and that's the part we never see coming. We think danger is loud, abrupt, hostile, but no, real betrayal is quiet, patient, and eerily intimate. They watch you with eyes that don't blink when you're vulnerable. They reach out, not to lift you, but to make sure they know just how high you've climbed before they pull the ladder away. You tell them things you don't share with anyone else, and they listen, not because they care, but because they're gathering what makes you human, gathering what could one day be turned against you. They don't destroy from a distance, they destroy from a place so near it feels like love, and that's why it hurts, because it was never random, it was rehearsed. That hug they gave when you were down, it wasn't comfort, it was reconnaissance. That moment they defended you, it wasn't loyalty, it was calculation. You don't realize it until the blade is already in, and by then, you're bleeding from a wound only someone who knew you could make. Strangers don't betray, friends do, family does. The people who walk beside you, speak softly, smile gently. Those are the ones you never suspect. And when they betray you, it doesn't just shake your trust in them. It shakes your trust in yourself. You begin to question your instincts. You replay conversations wondering where you missed the signal, but there wasn't one, because they didn't approach you to warn you. They approached you to reach the part of you that trusted too easily, loved too deeply, and forgave too quickly. They needed to be close to infect you with doubt, and once they succeed, they leave you not just wounded, but altered. That's the mark of real betrayal. It doesn't just harm your present, it haunts your future. You learn to flinch at kindness, to question closeness, to doubt every hand extended toward you. And yet, in all of that, there's something they didn't expect. You still rise. Even with the blade in your back and confusion in your chest, you rise. Because proximity may give them access, but it doesn't guarantee victory. They came close to break you, but they underestimated what it means to have endured and still breathe. You saw the betrayal up close, and that sight, however devastating, has given you vision. The kind of vision that will never again mistake a serpent for a friend. The illusion of loyalty. Not everyone who stands by your side is there to protect you. Some stand close only to study you, every habit, every fear, every quiet hope you whisper in late-night conversations. They mimic loyalty with frightening precision. Smiles feel warm, words sound sincere, and gestures appear kind. But what you don't realize, until it's too late, is that it was all part of a performance, one carefully scripted to make you drop your defenses. They don't want your love, they want your weakness. They don't care about your story. They care about how it ends, and how they can twist it in their favor. The illusion of loyalty is perhaps the most dangerous disguise betrayal wears. It doesn't come with red flags, It comes with nods of approval, shared secrets, and hands placed over yours when you're falling apart. They pretend to cheer for you, to grieve with you, to fight alongside you. But beneath that surface is a mind measuring your steps, timing your silence, and noting every place where you lack armor. Loyalty, true loyalty, is selfless and steady. But their loyalty is a strategy. They wear it like a costume, only long enough to be invited inside. And once inside, they don't fix what's broken. They take note of where to pull the thread. They make you believe you're safe, that you've found someone who finally understands you. And in that comfort, you start to breathe differently. You stop watching your back. You speak openly. That's when the illusion tightens its grip. That's when the trap starts to close, because they don't need power. They need your power. They don't want control. They want you to hand it over unknowingly, willingly, trusting that their loyalty is real. And you do. Because we all want to believe the person beside us is genuine. We all want to believe the one who comforts us won't also be the one to harm us. But illusions don't warn you before they shatter. They just disappear, leaving you in a silence so sharp you question everything. You sit there wondering how someone who held your hand so tightly could let go without a word. But it was never about holding your hand. It was about knowing when to drop it. Real loyalty doesn't shift with convenience. It doesn't flatter, it doesn't pretend, it doesn't plan your downfall behind a veil of concern. It stands with you when there's nothing to gain, but the ones who betrayed you, they never stood for you. They stood near you. There's a difference, and now you know it. That mask they wore may have fooled you once, but not again. Because once you've seen the illusion for what it is, you begin to look deeper. You stop chasing appearances. You stop begging for company. You stop fearing loneliness more than you fear dishonesty. And that shift, that awakening, is the moment their performance ends. You no longer believe in actors. You believe in actions, and the illusion, it dissolves the moment you no longer need the lie. The calm before the collapse, there's a strange kind of peace that settles right before the betrayal. A calm so deceptive, it feels like everything is finally falling into place. The conversations are smoother, the tension is gone, they laugh more, they look you in the eyes, they ask if you're okay, and for a moment you believe they mean it. But what you're feeling isn't safety. It's strategy. What you're sensing isn't connection. It's the final breath before the break. Because betrayal doesn't storm in like a thief, it tiptoes in like a friend. The calm before the collapse is the betrayer's most calculated move. They know that chaos doesn't hurt as much when you expect it. So they build comfort, they create rhythm, they become consistent, predictable, present, and you start to relax. You stop questioning. You stop noticing the small changes, the way they listen less, the way their words feel slightly rehearsed, the way their presence feels staged, but you silence that instinct because everything seems fine. That's the trap. The illusion of peace makes the destruction that follows feel like an earthquake, not because it was sudden, but because you were made to believe there was no fault line beneath your feet. They lull you into a stillness, not out of affection, but because they want your reaction to be pure. They want your pain to be unfiltered. That's why they smile more before they leave. That's why they seem gentle before they disappear. They don't want you guarded when the damage is done. They want you wide open, unarmored, trusting. Because betrayal, when done with precision, doesn't just hurt. It redefines your understanding of safety. You begin to question peace. You begin to fear moments of stillness. You wonder if every silence hides an exit, if every kindness is a warning. The calm they give you isn't love, it's anesthesia. Just enough to keep you numb until the blade slips in. And when it does, you don't scream immediately. You don't react. You pause because the betrayal wasn't loud. It was soft. It was practiced. And it leaves you stunned, trying to match the pieces of their affection with the reality of their departure. You replay the final days, the final hours, the final words. You search for signs, but they were buried beneath the calm, hidden in the comfort. That's what makes it so devastating, not just that they left, but how they did it. With grace, with silence, with the same voice they used to promise they'd never leave. And now, you carry that quiet with you, the awareness that calm doesn't always mean peace, that sometimes it's the stillness before the storm. But here's what you also carry, the strength that came after. Because even though the collapse was quiet, your rise was not. You learned to read the silence, to trust the shift, to sense the pause that comes before the pain. And this time when calm returns, you'll know exactly what it is and what it isn't. Love as a strategy, not a feeling they didn't love you. They studied you. Every gesture of affection, every kind word, every comforting moment. It wasn't a reflection of their heart. It was a reflection of their plan. For some people, love is not a feeling. It's a tool, a disguise, a calculated expression of warmth designed to disarm you, not embrace you. And that's the cruelty of it, because when someone uses love as a strategy, they're not trying to connect, they're trying to conquer. They observe how your soul responds to kindness. They take mental notes when you let your guard down. They track the moments you choose forgiveness over distance, silence over confrontation. Then they use that knowledge to mold themselves into what you need, not because they are that person, but because they know that's how they gain access. And the most dangerous people aren't the ones who hate you. They're the ones who pretend to love you long enough to break what hatred never could. Their love isn't steady. It fluctuates with convenience. It disappears when you need it most and reappears when you've begun to heal, just enough to confuse you again. And yet, it all feels real in the moment, because they're experts at timing. They know when to show up, what to say, how to hold your hand just long enough to make you second, guess your gut. And that's where the damage begins, not in the betrayal itself, but in the erosion of your ability to trust what you feel. You start to believe you misjudge them. You wonder if you were too sensitive, too dramatic, too much. But no, you weren't wrong, you were real. They just weren't. They used love the way a thief uses silence, quietly, intentionally, and always in the dark. They knew what it would take to enter your heart, and they knew exactly where to hide the weapon. When people love you genuinely, they don't disappear when it's inconvenient. They don't weaponize your past. They don't take the things you shared in trust and turn them into knives. But someone who uses love as strategy, they do all of that, and worse, because they want the upper hand, not the honest bond. They're not interested in building with you. They're interested in building on you. But here's what they never expected, that their strategy would wake something in you. That being played would teach you precision. That being misled would teach you clarity. That every moment you were deceived would sharpen your vision, not dim it. You now know the difference between performance and presence, between someone who shows up for love and someone who shows up for control. They used love to manipulate. You'll use truth to liberate, because now you've learned that real love isn't something you chase. It's something that reveals itself in silence, in storms, and most of all, in the consistency they could never fake. The aftermath is proof. When the dust settles and the silence stretches longer than the goodbye, that's when the truth begins to speak, not in their words, but in your wounds. The betrayal doesn't echo because of what they did. It echoes because of how close they stood while doing it. You gave them a front row seat to your soul. You let them into your quiet thoughts, your unseen struggles, your most sacred hopes. And they used that nearness not to protect you, but to harm you with precision. The aftermath is what proves the depth of the betrayal, because strangers can't reach your heart. Only the trusted can bruise what they once held with care, and that's why the pain cuts so deep, not because it was unexpected, but because it was personal. Because it was someone you never thought would look at your vulnerability and see an opportunity. You question everything in the days that follow. How could someone so close be the one who shattered you? How could the same voice that said "I'm here" be the one that now leaves you in echoes? But that confusion is the confirmation. That disorientation is the proof. Because real love, real loyalty, it doesn't vanish without a trace. It doesn't flip the switch. It doesn't leave you wondering if it was ever real. What they left behind is more than emptiness. It's a mirror that shows you not just who they were, but who you were becoming before they broke you. And that's the part they couldn't stand. They stood close, not to support you, but to monitor your rise. They saw you healing, growing, seeing clearer, and they knew that version of you might eventually outgrow them, expose them, or worse, stop needing them. So they struck when you least expected it. They left when your heart was wide open, but in doing so, they revealed everything. They proved they were never standing beside you. They were standing over you, waiting for the moment to turn loyalty into leverage, love into a lie. And now, in the quiet that follows, you begin to see it clearly. They needed access, and you gave it with grace. But now, you take it back with wisdom. The aftermath teaches you what their presence tried to hide, that someone's proximity doesn't mean they're with you. That presence isn't always partnership, and that closeness without truth is just a setup for pain. You survived not just the betrayal, but the illusion that preceded it. And that survival, that strength rising from the ruins, that's your proof too. Proof that even when the ones closest to you fall away, you don't fall apart. You rebuild, you rise, and this time you do it with eyes that see past charm, past smiles, past rehearsed affection. You no longer trust who stood close, you trust who stayed true, and from that knowing you rise unshaken.